Okay, let's get into this. Okay, so I have bought some hardboard from the local DIY store. I bought a large sheet and I have chopped it into 3 pieces to make 3 boards essentially. And so you can see there's another couple of boards there that I will make if this one works out to be well. So I've just gently sanded it down. It's a nice straight bitted board. Obviously when choosing a piece of suitable board, make sure it is nice and flat, because you want the flattest board you obviously possibly can get. So we basically just sanded this down gently, so it's now ready to get prepared for my experiment. Okay, so you'll see here I have an old stencil, and I'm just using this. We're not going to stencil this just yet. We're just going to try and get this to fit its size and also to where to put the lighting. So I'm just going to place that roughly on the board where I want it. As you can see, covers this, and we can now just see where I want to put this LED light in. So I would like some here over the word yes, some here over the word no. Obviously for the letters and the numbers it look great as well. So I'm just going to mark that with a pencil. So yeah, the word yes sort of here, the word no there, the letter A is here. Then I'll probably just go up to the top of the board, which is the letter G, the letter M here, and the same for the N, the Z, and the T. Again, letters 1, letter 0, and a goodbye at the bottom. So we just need to know roughly where things are going to be when we put our lighting down, just to get a rough idea. So what you should see, hopefully you can pick this up on the camera, sorry about the shadow from the sun, you should be able to see it, and we come in close, you should see where I've just roughly marked on the board where everything is going to go. Okay, let's get into how we're going to backlight this board. I'm going to use a combination of 2 different types of light. You don't have to do it this way, it's just what I have in my head at the moment. We have a white LED here, as you can see, and also a red LED there. So my plan for this is the white lighting will be under the words yes and no, and the rest of the board will be under this red lighting, which is also quite a nice neon strip. This is available very cheaply on Amazon. None of this sort of stuff is expensive. I won't be using either of these power sources. I will probably pick up a very small, very lightweight 5000 mAh power bank to do that. But for the minute, this is what I've got, this is what it's working with, and it's fine for the experimental part. Okay, so we're going to attempt to put the white lighting in now. So we're going to try and just cut it to size. And the great thing about these LED lights, they're really easy to choose the length you want. And looking at that, we need to cut it, and this will zoom in there on this bit here. So we'll just go ahead and do that. So discard that, and we now know that that bit will fit in there. So what will happen, where you will see that finished off at the end there, that will then join onto the red lighting. Okay, and this where I've got a couple of wires just attached will be drilled through below the board, and below the board, that is where I will attach the power bank. So let's get this just put roughly in place and we'll come back. Okay, so this is now stuck down where I want it, over where the letters no and yes will be. So I'm going to come back shortly and we will add the red neon light. Okay, so we've now added all the light strips where we want them. We've evenly spaced them out, and they should, with our measurements earlier, correspond to the parts of the board. So there's the word goodbye would be here, and the start of the letters are here, and obviously getting to the tops of the letters here. So what we need to do next is a bit fiddly, but you know, if you've got basic soldering skills, it's not too difficult. It's just a bit time consuming. When you place these LED strips on your board, you need to be mindful of which way you put them round. On each of the ends, I don't know if you can see here, of the LED strips, you'll have a plus and a minus. That's obviously with the white strip. These are slightly different, obviously these red ones, but it's the same thing. You've got a ground and a 5 volt. So what we need to do, you need to keep them around the right way so they rotate, and we need to keep them so the power source will be here, running all the way through here, then into this one, into that one, into that one, etc. So it basically makes one long coil. And obviously what we need to do here is solder some small wires onto the end of each of the runs of the LEDs, and you will see very handily there are, on each of the ends, there is a little spot ready for soldering, and it's super simple. Your solder sticks really well to this, and you just wire it all up and make one continuous line. So I'm going to put the camera down for now and just do that. I'll do the first one and just show you what it looks like, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, what will make your life a lot easier is to put a little bit of flux on the ends of each of these terminals and just put a little blob of solder like so on the end of each terminal contact. So when we actually add the wire, it's just super simple to do. Move the camera slightly so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to use to do the wiring, you can use any piece of wire, it really doesn't matter. This is just out of a piece of Cat5 wiring from a network cable. Just happen to have loads of this lying around, and it's got 2 cores on it, and this is what we're going to do to put it together. So we just need to work out the length. So the first length will run from here to here, and I want it roughly there to there. So would help if I had some scissors. Okay, I'll discard that. So there's our first length of cable. So you just need to strip this back and put it in place. Okay, so we're now attempting to wire this up. So we need to put there's already a blob of solder on the contacts here, so you should just need to push that in there just so it holds on there. Hold it in place for a minute or two, or a second or two, till it's there, and it needs to go to the corresponding side down there, which is the positive on here. So it's actually the second one down. Again, just hold that over the contact, put a bit of solder there, hold it in place, and that's in there. So then we need to do the same on the inside, exactly the same process, and it's very fiddly to do. So we basically have that in place, hold it in there, let it set. On the same one on the inside here. Like so. So what we're going to do with this now, the line would follow here, across to here, there, and finishing off here. So I'm going to wire this up now, and I'm going to come back to you showing you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so we've now completed the wiring. As you can see how this is all held together. And the final run comes to here, there it stops. So I've just temporarily wired up a USB power bank to show you the operation. So switch it on, with any luck. There we go. So you will see how this actually looks when it's attached to the board. Obviously the next part of this build is to put the clear resin over the top, and what we're going to do, we want to then rub that clear resin down so it's got a rough matte finish, so that it kind of acts as a diffuser. So back shortly with the next part of the build. Okay, so we've now got this all wired in, as you can see. What I do recommend doing is to use some contact glue to stick down the wires that attach here. Doesn't matter that it all looks a bit messy, because it's all going to be covered up fairly soon anyway. This is just so obviously you want to keep everything as flat as possible to the board itself when we actually apply the resin. When I was having a look at this last night, I came to the conclusion, especially the white lights at the top are actually quite bright. So what I've done, I'll try to diffuse this with just basically masking tape and a little bit of green film, just to add for a bit of interest. So I'll show you what I mean. So when that's on, we've got two white on the end, a section of green and some white on the other end where the yes and the no's are going to be. And I'm also thinking it's actually quite bright, and it doesn't really need to be hugely bright when you're doing these visuals. It just needs to be enough. So what I might actually go ahead and do is also diffuse off the red lights as well, just so it makes it a little bit of a softer light. So I'll do that and come back. So I've decided to actually diffuse all of it, because I think it's all going to be too bright once we have the resin on the top, because that would also act as a natural diffuser as well. So I'll just run some tape around it, as you can see, and when it's on, it will look something like this. So the next thing we need to do, we need to get a hole drilled here somewhere, I would think, so to get this wire down underneath the board and then attached underneath to the battery pack. I'm not going to use this one, it's too big and heavy. I'll probably purchase a small one more suitable for the job that can go underneath it. And so we'll have a hole drilled here. It needs to be very, very, very tight to the actual wire that's going to run through, obviously, because you don't want the resin falling through the hole, so that's important too. So I will go back and do that and come back shortly. Thank you. Okay, so now we have finished all the wiring of the board. The USB cable is now underneath the board, and we've now just finished taping it all up, so it's all nice and smart. So the next thing to do is get this prepared, ready for the resin. What is quite important here is to make sure when you're going to start pouring resin onto the top of this board, everything has to be as flat as possible. So and also, because the we've got the USB cable coming from below the board, we've used a couple of chocks here just to bring it up, so there's room under the table. So that's why that is like this. So just need to make sure everything sits level. Excuse me, trying to do this with one set of hands is not very easy. I'll try and show you there. Hopefully you can see that. And the same across there. Probably can't see that, but all I'm saying is just make sure you have everything nice and level. Okay, so we're going to use some product, and what we have here is what we're going to use. Just got this off of Amazon. Never used this one before, but we'll give it a try. It's supposed to be quite good, and it comes, as you can see, in two containers. One is the resin itself, and the second one is hardener. So you mix them together in a 1-to-1 ratio and apply to the board. The other thing you probably will need to get is some of this. This is epoxy resin release tape. This is so we can attach this to the side of the board so the epoxy resin doesn't pour off down the side, and also if you just use masking tape, it will just leak through. So we're going to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously mask this off into our area, and I'll do that and come back to you. Okay, so we've taped up the board, ready to go. Now we're just going to mix up the resin itself. So as I said, 50-50 with the mixtures, so just use 2 cups, fill them up, let's say it's about half full. You can always add more layers to this. So I don't know if you can see, half a cup there, and we need to do exactly the same with the other one. With the hardener, it would help if you took the top off. Check a little bit more of that one. Yeah, quite happy with that. So kit they do supply some mixing sticks, which look like lollipops to me, and some gloves. These gloves are any good, so let's find out. Okay. Well, my hands are a bit too big for them. Never mind, we get the idea. So, pour the mixture into your mixing bowl, both together. Make sure everything is out. Yep. And then just slowly mix this in. Do it slowly to avoid bubbles. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now just evenly pour it in. Not very helpful when you have a dog walking under everything here. Right, Lily, out. Seriously. Okay, so the resin's now dried, so what we're going to do now is give the board a sand with some 80 grit paper and a orbital sander. I've made a start. I'm not going to do too much on film because it makes too much dust and I don't want to ruin my camera, but obviously we just need to go in there and get this to a nice rough level to take the next level. Please wear a face mask. This stuff's nasty. You don't want to be breathing it in, so wear a mask when you're doing it. There are proper respirator masks if you prefer. I'm in a garage with the door open, so I'm going to take my chances a little bit just to get this top coat done. So it's just a case of sanding this down. Okay, as you can see, we've got the first part of the board sanded down now nicely. There's a little bit of shame here, there was a bit of place where the resin didn't quite set properly, but no matter, because I've got an idea how to get around that one yet. So anyway, what you need to get is a nice, good, clear sanded surface. Use a P80 sandpaper just to make this nice and rough, because we're obviously going to do another layer of resin, and also we're going to try and sort this out here, which is a real shame, but hey ho, I'm no resin expert, I'm just learning as I go like everybody else does. So it's quite fickle stuff to work with, I've discovered that. And it's quite messy, and do wear gloves and do wear a respirator when you are using epoxy resin. Anyway, so I'm quite pleased. Apart from that little bit there, I'm quite pleased with where we got to so far. The electrics all still work fine. I'm thinking that I was rather hoping that once we sort of scuffed up the surface it would be a little bit more opaque than it is, but this leads me on to my next way to get around this. So this is, you know, we're doing this together. I'm finding out as I go, so what we're going to do we'll come to shortly. Okay, so we've rubbed down this top surface here nice and rough, so we're going to get a nice key to the next surface of resin on here. And obviously we don't really want to see all these electrical wires here, and so we're going to put a template around that. As I mentioned before, we had some trouble with it not sticking properly here, but obviously put another coat of resin here has sorted that out, so that's absolutely fine now. So what I've done, what we're going to use is just a sheet of art paper, cut to size, and we're going to obviously make sure we need areas for the resin to grip. So obviously got the border around the outside, and there's also two small slits in here, and I've kind of measured that against the template we're going to use for the actual letters and the numbers for the Ouija board. But obviously having a little bit here obviously helps this paper grip nice and firmly on here, and so make a nice solid strong surface. But obviously it's hiding all the electrics, which we don't want to see, and if I just put the power on, you will see where it all kind of lines up in here. So as you can see, this is kind of what we will see when it's under the, I can't get my words out. This is what we will see once we've covered it over. So quite pleased with it so far. Been quite a lot of work, a few mistakes along the way. It's a bit of a learning curve with all of this, but we're making progress. So not quite how I envisioned it all to happen, but it's all good. Obviously, you know, if you want to do this project yourself, you will do it how you see fit. I probably would do it a different way. I wouldn't necessarily have all these lights running down through the middle. It'd probably look effective, but what might have been a lot easier in hindsight was probably just put some lighting just round the edges, and then just put the board straight on the top of the wood and resin over the top, and it would have just been enough light to show the board without all these extra complicated steps that I've had to make. But this is, you know, do it the way you think you want to do it. This is what I've ended up with. Still quite pleased with it, and I think it'll be quite effective once we've obviously got the actual stencil with the Ouija board, letters and numbers on the top. It'll look great in the dark. It'll look fantastic. Okay, so the next layer of resin is set. A little bit disappointed that the paper I used to try and hide the wires here is not as well covered as I'd hoped. You live and learn doing this, but I have another idea that might just sort this out. But the next stage for this is to sand it down again, actually then get the stencil put on, and then once that's all set and dried, then we will polish it once we've got the top coat of resin on, and then it'll make it the planchette or the glass glide really well on it. So my plan here is to spray the bits in black here where I tried to mask this before. You can still see it really clearly. So the idea is to, as it's going to be backlit, we're not going to have any issue here. So I've just basically cut out a paper stencil here, and we're just going to coat this over in black, leaving where the words, letters, numbers, etc. are going to be. Okay, so the paint has dried, and I've removed the backing paper, so obviously the numbers and letters are going to go over this bit here. So we're just going to try for size. I won't be filming when I'm actually stenciling because I don't really want paint all over my nice camera, thanks very much. So as you can see, that's where the light's going to go, and we will place that stencil over the top in position. You'll see it fits nicely. I'll just take the camera a second, exactly where I need it to be. Hope you can see that. So I'll get it a bit more accurately in position, and you should at this point start to see this coming along how I want it to. Okay, so I'm not going to film this bit because I want to take my camera out of the spraying area. I don't want to damage my camera, but I'm just going to literally use a spray paint to paint over the stencil in position. Okay, so we've now painted the board. It's actually come out quite effective. As you can see, everything on the board is where we want it to be. We've got a nice kind of spooky looking black background as well, which is really effective. And I can show you the effect. Just put that down a second. Move that round. I can show you the effect with the light effect going on. As you can see, everything's all quite nicely lit up. Everything that we wanted hidden is now hidden. Took a while, but we got there. So I've just basically just washed it down. That's why you can see it's all a bit streaky there. So I've just given that black paint I just put on it a bit of a sand down, so we get a nice key surface for the final coat of resin, which is going to go on top of this. A couple of the letters I just need to define a bit better where they've got a little bit, what's for want of a better word, a little bit scratched where I've been trying to do this. Some of them are a little bit faded, so that's quite easy to rectify. You can either use some sort of paint and a little brush, or even use just a black marker pen works just as well on this sort of thing. So quite effective. Sorry about everything behind me. I'm working in quite a close environment, so yeah, I'm really pleased. Yeah, it's going to look good. It's going to look really effective when it's gone. So you can see there's a little bit of green light at the top. I was going to have the word Ouija written there, but I decided it didn't really need it, so you can maybe use that as some sort of trigger, you know, maybe move the planchette of the glass to the green light for something. I don't know, it could be quite good. So I just got a few of these letters. As you can see, that O's it's got a bit of a show through on there. So I just need to go and touch up a few of these, and then we're going to resin over the top. Now I've been thinking about this final top of resin. What I'm going to do, I've actually ordered some red dye as well to go with it. I won't add too much, but I just think it will just make it look a little bit more finished, if that makes sense, when we put the final coat of dye on. And it will give it a nice sort of, yeah, I think it just look nice. And obviously what we're going to do, we're going to highly polish that. So obviously a glass or a planchette is going to move so well across this board. It's going to be brilliant. So I'm really pleased. I mean, you know, I've had to make a few changes along the way. I was going to do it, but you know, you're kind of living my thought process as I'm going on. Obviously you'll do this somewhat different than me. Learn from my mistakes from doing this, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work. I'm not going to deny that, but it's also been a lot of fun. I'm not the particularly good crafty type person, but if you are, you could probably make this a lot better than what I could. But if this gives you an idea or inspiration to do something similar, that's all I really want from this. So anyway, I will come back to you once I've got the last bit of the red resin on the top, and then we'll get it polished down, and then it'll be finished. Okay, so we've got the final coating of resin, which will be the top coat. It's now set. It just needs a bit longer to dry out. Yeah, really pleased. You can hopefully you pick this up on camera, but it's got a nice reflective surface. What we're going to do with that, we're going to grind this down and then polish it to a mirror finish once it's dried and cured properly. You will notice when putting on this tape before, this stuff, I mean, it's good, but the resin will breach this. So what I've done, I've used some duct tape just to sort of hold this in place better, and otherwise if you don't use some duct tape below, you will find this will breach, the resin will breach. And as you can see on here where it had leaked out once before, so learn from my mistakes, and obviously just by putting a bit of extra of this duct tape, gaffer tape, whatever you want to call it, it will help keep the resin actually on top of the board, and that's where you want it. You don't want it on the floor or anything like that, obviously. But it's come out really well. It's got a nice glossy finish. So all there is that we need to do now with this is to give it a good sand down. We go down through the grits, starting on an 80 grit, 120 grit, 320 grit, and all the way up to about a P3000, I'm thinking. But we will see what needs to be done as we get to it. And then finally we will polish it off with something like T-cut. That will get rid of any further scratches, and then just polish it to a high shine. You can look at other YouTube videos on how to polish resin, which will be much better than what I can do. This is the first time I've ever tried using resin. I've learnt a few mistakes along the way, but it's a learning process, but I'm quite pleased. You know, it's looking quite good. Okay, the board is now out of its mould and it's had time to cure. So all what really remains to be done now is just to grind it down and make it smooth on top. It's actually quite smooth as it is, as you can see the reflection there, but we obviously want to get a really high quality polish finish. The edges, obviously where it's been in the mould, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, will need smoothing down, but this will look good when it's done. Okay, thanks for staying with me through this project. The board is now finished. Yeah, very pleased with the way it's turned out. Got a little bit more polishing to do on the top, but that shouldn't take too much long. I'm just waiting for some more sandpaper to do that, and a polishing compound. But yeah, it looks fabulous. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Because it's nice hard resin top, you'll find the planchette moves nice and easily. Same with the glass. As you can see, there's no trouble with moving this around. It looks super effective when it's dark. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see some more mad inventions being made, and I'll catch you another time. Thanks very much.